started? Let's start with word of prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, we forgive others who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Amen.
Let's say pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, this is the monthly meeting of the county commissioners, date 12/11/2023. We welcome everyone. Approval of the agenda. Anybody see anything? Any deletions, additions, or? If not, we'll ask for a motion to approve.
I approve.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Approval of minutes. Any questions? If everything looks good, then we'll ask for a motion to approve it.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Approval of financial reports. Any questions? Any
Got
comments?
some questions you got, or you wanna do it private?
If not, we'll ask for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Appearances, it says none. We'll move on to old business. UTV registration. Doug, you want to enlighten us on that?
Yes, sir. So I got this back from the county attorney. Everything looked good. All he said was we just need to get it signed and put in place. So if we sign it today, it will be approval of today. I know Jennifer has already started the tag for the UTVs.
Yes, we started, we do it. Miss Jennifer, the tax commissioner, asked us if we would do the inspections of them. They had to be inspected by her office by law, but she asked would we do it, and I said we'll be glad to do it. So actually Shane is, he's one that's in charge of that. They bring them in, he inspects them, verifies the VIN numbers, fills out the form for them. They have to be notarized, and he actually runs the VIN numbers and tags through NCIC and GCIC to be sure none of them are stolen or wanted or whatever. So I think it's a good procedure, and I mean, you know, we're just glad to help the tax commissioner's office in doing that.
So I have a question.
Yes.
You don't have to do it if you have one, just if you're gonna ride it on the dirt county road.
You can cross a state highway, you can cross a city street, you can ride it on a county road as long as you have the tag, yes.
As long as you got the tag on. Okay.
It's got all, he inspects them, all the required equipment, lights, seat belt, and all that has to be on it. So he.
Does it have to have turn signals?
Turn signals, yes.
What about golf carts? Is that included
Golf
in
carts
that?
can't do them. They got to be able to run between 25 and 65 miles an hour, and to meet the criteria for this.
Any other questions or comments? Well, if y'all want us to do this, we'll go ahead and ask for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Fueling center report. I don't think nothing really changed. Everything was good.
You got all the data on it. Nothing's changed. We're still doing the same.
New business, holiday meeting and schedule, page 20 through 22.
Seems this is for next
It's
year.
something we have to do the first of the year, so basically the meeting schedule with the same dates as the second Monday of every month. On the holiday schedule, this just follows basically what you approved. It wasn't the first of the year, but you guys went back and added floating holiday. So we hadn't had any complaints on these. So we hadn't had any complaints on it. It actually worked out. We had some that was taking the different floating holidays. So those two are the schedules you need to approve.
Okay, now I see that the list in here, maybe I'm looking at it wrong, got, 2023, is that correct on it?
Where's that at?
24, right?
Yeah, yeah, I just need to change, you talking about on the meeting schedule?
Yeah.
Meeting schedule.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions, comments? If not, we'll need a motion to approve.
I approve.
We have a second,
I second.
all in favor? Motion carried. All right, next on the agenda, state court.
All right, basically what this is the continuation from the first meeting you had in the workshops that, you were advised, you were given the data, on how to proceed. So it's just how to discuss how you want to proceed.
Y'all got any comments? Y'all want to proceed
So,
forward with this or
I
have
do.
comments?
So I'd spoken with Mela earlier, and Mr. Mike Thomas had called me, which he's still in court right now. But I would like to hear from the other side too, like, from Mela. I just want to hear from both sides.
Yeah, Danny called me while I go down in Shepherd, and he said that him and Mike would be here, but I'm
Yeah.
saying we can move it on down the agenda and give them time to get here if that's what we need to do.
Yes, that's good.
Okay, vehicle lease program, pages 26.
Mr. Allen, these guys are here.
Okay.
I'm Jamie Reed. I'm here on behalf of Brandon Motor Company. This is Dave Kelly who works with Brandon. We were asked to send a proposal over as far as leasing government vehicles. Just give you a brief history of our dealership. We're located in Unadilla, Georgia, about 2 hours north of here. Brandon entered the government space back in 1995. And since then, we've grown the business. We're in the top 25 in the nation as far as government vehicles, patrol vehicles, public works vehicles. We're Ford and Chevrolet. And we put together a proposal for the sheriff. And in a nutshell, this lease is through Ford Municipal Finance. Rule of thumb, you can say if you had a need for a vehicle or 3 vehicles at present. Rule of thumb is you can lease 3 of these vehicles through the Ford Municipal Finance Program for about the same amount of money as what you're going to buy one outright for. So, for instance, let's say it's a $45,000 score. You can buy that $45,000 score, pay to have it upfitted with the lights and sirens and whatnot. Or you can enter into this lease and it can be set up 2, 3, 4, or 5 years. And payment schedule can be set up monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, or annual. The 2 most popular that we do are a 3-year annual and a 5-year annual. There's no mileage cap on the lease. You're under warranty. And there's a dollar buyout. So you own the vehicle essentially at the end of the lease. Or you can opt to trade it back in or sell it on gov deals or whatever. All of the equipment that goes on these vehicles, we do in-house. So it can be a turnkey patrol car. And all that equipment can be incorporated into that lease. And we put together some figures for you. We've got some information for you to take a look at.
As far as the leasing goes, a lot of dealerships, they'll offer leases. If y'all want to take a look at these, I didn't know there was 5. We brought 4 of them. But
I can't read.
I got you. And then as far as the numbers, we've sent I don't know if y'all got a copy. Do they have a copy of this?
I need to see the numbers.
Well, they can.
Okay, all right.
They the money pay.
You want me to make
So-
a copy? Copy for everyone?
Yes, sir. So with these, and the lease pages are on the back there. A lot of dealerships will offer a lease on the cars. However, they don't do it on the equipment. Capital expenditures with a lot of municipalities and county governments have really gone up on the equipment side of it, from our public works customers to the sheriff's offices. On their equipment, you've got not just your lights and sirens and everything that's making it a functional patrol car, but with a lot of the newer state requirement stuff, camera systems, things like that, a lot of these agencies are seeing where, in a lot of cases, their equipment has doubled on what has to go on these cars. Cost of everything's up, but then the required equipment is up as well. So we've got a good relationship with Wheeling Manufacturing, Havas, and a lot of these, big name distributors that build these parts for these cars. We stock them in-house. I've got an install team there. When I left the sheriff's office in 20, that was kind of what I was brought into the business for, was the equipment side. Since then, I've transitioned. I'm still overseeing the install side, but do sales with Jamie and his father. But as far as the equipment side goes on these, you've got a breakdown where, and I think from what the sheriff's office had asked us for is, you know, if you're gonna do the lease, in order to get the most out of it and to limit your capital expenditures out, it's better to go ahead and do the full turnkey patrol car in the lease. There's a lot of lease companies out there like Enterprise and others that they'll approach a county commission and they'll say, hey, you know, we're gonna take over your public works, your water department, you know, anything that falls under county government, and we're gonna come in here and replace this car, and this car. And they really push you hard on the cycling program where in 3 years you swap it out, 5 years you swap it out. Well, that's fine and dandy for some folks, but, you know, depending, you know, if you've got an investigator in a truck, it's really not profitable to pull him out of that truck in 3 years, because an investigator might only put how many miles a year on a truck, you know? Very little. And so with this program and with that dollar buyout that Jamie mentioned, at the end of it, if you say, you know what, we're gonna keep these 5 or these 10 patrol cars and we're gonna put rookies in those, go ahead and do another lease on some more, pay $1 for each one of those cars, you get the titles, you put them, and in essence, you're putting newer vehicles in the fleet without having to buy everything up front and have a lot of capital outlay. And so that's kind of the main gist of it. We're pretty lax as far as our sales model goes. He retired from sheriff's office and I was law enforcement. This is our bread and butter. We don't run out on the lot saying, hey, you know, let us slap you in these tires and that's not our gig. Our gig is, you know, looking at people's budgets, looking at how we can get them the most as far as, most vehicles on the ground without, you know, upfront capital outlay. Unless
This is the easiest way to update your fleet without killing your budget in the first year. Like I said, it's our bread and butter. We're top 25 in the nation. We're selling in 40 states right now. So, a lot of people are getting on board with this lease program.
Well, it's just, it's something that whether you're a large county government or a small one, the concept remains the same and not forking out as much capital up front and kind of stretching that money. But that's kind of our pitch. If y'all have any questions, it's I mean we'll sell you cars outright. We don't make, and you know, a lot of this stuff with the municipal side, it doesn't profit us really one way or the other. If you want to come and buy a car with equipment and all outright and have a lot of capital expenditure, but then you know we're done with it right then, that's fine too. This is just a way to kind of stretch that. So we're not partial to one side or the other. As long as it's got a branded sticker on the back of it, I'm pretty happy.
We appreciate y'all coming. Y'all got any questions or comments to them? Well, we'll look this stuff over. We appreciate y'all coming and
We appreciate the opportunity.
talk to the department heads and see what's right.
And it goes with public works too. It's not just, you know, the sheriff's office had us do this, but, you know, if y'all got old pickup trucks in public works and you want a way to kind of cycle those without having a lot of capital, we can do this with anything. As far as equipment, say they need a skid steer with, I mean, it's whatever as far as any department.
Yeah, we pretty well done bought about new stuff for the.
And just to give you an example, if y'all want to follow up on it, the last one I did with the city of Eatonton in Putnam County, they leased 10 vehicles for their police department. Know anybody else that way? If you want to talk and see how they like it, yeah. I'll let you start.
All right, we appreciate it.
Appreciate
Y'all
y'all.
giving us your time.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go back now to the, state court part of it. So what we need to do is, Danny, we wanna hear y'all's side of this thing.
Well, I mean, I don't know what the, I mean, nobody's actually officially talked to me in any capacity about the state court. I mean, I've heard a little bit of rumblings from street talk, and then go to state court today and learn it's on the agenda. And so, what's on the agenda and what can we address and answer your questions, I guess is.
Well, one of the things that we had a lot of concern over, speaking for myself, is all the backlog cases. Some of them date back, I understand, 2016.
Well, those are, if they haven't been dead docketed, they probably need to be dead docketed or dismissed. But I don't think there's a whole lot that old. I mean, the cases that are, probably the cases from 2020 forward, when COVID came, we need to address those and dispose of those. And the way to address those is to summon jurors for the criminal cases. Most lawyer represented cases, they're not going to get resolved until they're put on the spot to make a decision. And so anything that's from that time forward, we probably need to prosecute. Even some of those probably, if you've got witnesses that are not available or troopers that have moved off, we look at each case by case. But the way to address the backlogs is to bring in jurors. And I would think that probably 2 juror sessions would pretty much clean up everything that needs cleaning up. And if anything's older than that, I mean, we can certainly clean it up. I mean, there's always a process of carryover. I learned from some of our discussion today that some of the commissioners really don't even know what our function is. The state court's primary function is your misdemeanor court for the county. Misdemeanors are mainly traffic offenses, everything from your more serious traffic offenses such as DUI, reckless driving, a lot of driving on suspended license, suspended registration, reckless driving. The more serious traffic offenses is probably your main function. Of course, since it's a misdemeanor court, we also deal with simple batteries, even simple battery, domestic violence, criminal trespass, things of that nature. But your primary function of the state court is to dispose of your serious traffic offenses and your less serious too, even your speedings. But that's your main function. All felonies always go to Superior Court. And if there's one single event in which there are charges for felonies and misdemeanors, typically they'll go together to Superior Court. But that's your primary function of your state court, is to handle your misdemeanor criminal cases in the county. Right now, the city has a municipal court that handles traffic in the city. And if somebody comes into the traffic court, a municipal court of the city, and wants a jury trial, the case gets transferred to state court rather than Superior Court, because it's a misdemeanor. There is a backlog, but it can be dealt with, and that's the responsibility of Mike Thomas and me. Mike being the solicitor, he's the prosecutor. So that's the way we would address that, and it's time. It's past time to do that. But I think if you'd give us the year 20 or the first half probably of 2024, your calendar would be pretty well current.
Yeah, it was brought to our attention that, some people lost their license. I mean, you spoke earlier, just a little while ago, I want everybody to be on the same page here.
Okay.
You know, that, me and you spoke earlier, you know, that it was brought to our attention by some people, you know, were trying to get the license back. And we're talking years ago is the way it was presented to us.
I mean, is anything current? I mean, we deal with issues like that periodically if it comes up, and there are ways to deal with that. Is it anybody complaining about a license now that we know of?
Y'all asking me?
Yes,
I
go ahead.
mean,
Well, I think Miss Gail gets calls, and I know we get calls about DUIs, you know. And that was the thing that we talked about, you know, you and Mike and I talked together one time about maybe having court once a month if we didn't handle nothing but DUIs. Because once they get a DUI, they got 45 days driving permit. So they can, after 45 days, they don't have anything to drive on. And people call us, I mean, I get calls, and I'm sure Miss Gail gets a lot of calls at the clerk's office about, you know, how do I get our license back? And that was one of the things, I know you mentioned city court, Judge, I know we have city court once a month. And I think if there was a way that we make it have state court, I mean, you know, it may not even take a whole day, you know, and handle DUIs, I think that would alleviate a lot of the problem, you know.
we can do that. I mean, we can have more courts. Well, what happens when lawyers get involved in cases, particularly those types of cases, is that, you know, I think the jury method is the better way to force the issue. But if we can resolve them on a month-to-month basis, I mean, we could do that. We could have one term or one session per month until we get caught up. Either way would work. But, I mean, I'm not personally aware that there's a serious problem with people having driver's license issues. I mean, if you've got some, I mean, let them be known and let them be known to him. And he's the prosecutor. See, I react to what he brings before the court. You're the chief law enforcement officer in the county. He's the chief prosecutor in the county. I preside over the court. Until something's brought to me, I don't know that there's a problem.
Yes, sir, I understand that. And, you know, and we had met a couple of times, you know, about doing something, you know. Even one suggestion was maybe after city court that we could have just a DUI court, you know, one time. Well, you're already there. And I know it would require a court recorder. We'd have to have a court recorder and a probation officer and all there. But,
yeah, when you have court, you gotta have the whole network of people that function or serve the court for it to operate. You gotta have the clerk, a law enforcement officer, and we gotta take our pleas on the record if we take pleas or any sort of, hearing. I mean, you gotta have court for it. So having a court session involves 4 or 5 different people having to be there. But, I mean, I would be committed to doing whatever it would take to bring it current, whether it's having a session per month, but there again, I think where we've probably fallen down a little bit is not getting the jurors in. Because defense lawyers that have tough cases aren't gonna negotiate those cases and work them out until they're put on the spot. And having the jury come in, the prosecutor has to make a decision, the defense lawyer has to make a decision. Am I going to trial or am I gonna cop a plea of some sort? And you and I have also talked about the DUI cases, and they're tougher to prove because of some appellate decisions that have come out. So a lot of those usually get pled down. But there again, even those that need to be pled down, they don't get pled down until people have to make a decision. So the way to make people make a decision is to bring in jurors. Your state court's been around a long time, and it serves the county well financially. You pay me $17,000 a year, and you pay Mike $14,000 a year, and you got a full-time judge and a full-time prosecutor in the court. And if you shift that to somewhere else, you're gonna have to create some more clerical jobs wherever you shift it to, if you shift it to probate. That's your big financial consideration. I mean, assuming the people that are staffed now or got full-time jobs, if you put, well, arraignment today, which was 3 months worth, we probably went through 250 cases today. Arraignment. Took quite a few pleas. We got some not guilties. Those that have not guilty, they usually assigned a lawyer. Then their next appearance is to appear and try their case. So, anything else? I mean, I'll address whatever questions anybody's got.
And those 250 cases, how far they dated back?
Today, 2020 was probably the oldest, and those were ones that we got in on bench warrants that didn't show before.
I think 2022 is when we started.
Yeah, well, what happens is if there's a no-show, there's a mechanism to compel the person to show. If it's traffic related, they get a notice that the driver's license is going to be suspended for failure to appear. And that gets a response out of it. And then if it's non-traffic, we issue a bench warrant, which is an order from the court to arrest the person. And then we require that when they're arrested on a bench warrant, that they post a cash bond to cover whatever they're charged with. So today's court was devoted, to the more recent cases. But we had some that dated back maybe a couple of years, but those were people that came in response to bench warrants. They had bonded out, posted cash money, and they had an incentive to come to court and get their case over with so that they can clear it up.
How many surrounding counties still have state court?
You got Early, Miller, Decatur, Grady, Mitchell. Those are in the immediate area. The Patola Circuit has 7 counties. Early and Miller are your only two that have state courts.
Any comments, any questions?
Well,
And you're saying that we can have state court once a month? Because what I'm getting is that when someone with a DUI or something, they got to wait 3 months sometimes to have their case heard. When they want to go back to work, they can't go back to work because they don't have no license or something like that. And they got to wait 3 months. They already was punished taking their license. Now they got to get double punished to wait more time to get heard. So is there a way that we can set it
I
up?
haven't heard a lot of pushback on that. Now, I've heard a little bit from the sheriff today, but our regular terms are once a quarter. The regular term, which is second Monday of March, June, September, and December. And that usually handles that issue, but and there is a means by which they can go to the Department of Driver Services with the court's permission to get a limited permit for work purposes. But we don't see a whole lot of that.
No. And let me say, a lot of, we're talking about month to month on driving under the influence. The test, whether it's a blood test or it's sent to the crime lab. And if they get an attorney until we get results from that test, saying if they were driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs. If they have an attorney, the attorney is not going to plead or not going to dispose of the case until he gets the crime lab report. And I have seen it be 2 to 3 months in crime lab report. They are back to us. And this is not the only, I've been to state court meetings. In fact, I went to Atlanta to the impaired drivers school, a 2-day school. And this is not the only court that's backed up. It's all over the state that's backed up in court cases.
Which is true, but that's not a justification for us not acting a little more efficiently and promptly in dealing with ours. This is not news, but everybody knows about Elliott, I guess, most people do.
Yeah.
You've heard of the Georgia implied consent law? You ever heard that term?
What is that?
All right, from the day I started practicing law, Georgia had an implied consent law. And what that says is everybody that's granted a driver's license, when they get a driver's license, the law implies and imposes upon that person that they have consented to give a breathalyzer test to see if they've got alcohol in their system. Well, there was a case in 2020, I think. It's Elliott is the name of the case, Elliott versus State. Anyway, the Georgia Supreme Court ruled that the implied consent law in Georgia was unconstitutional, that the law that made a driver blow into the intox machine was requiring that person to do an affirmative act that tended to show that they committed a crime, which violated the constitutional provision that prevented a person from testifying against himself, being a witness against himself. All right, and since that case, so Georgia no longer has an enforceable implied consent law. So if a trooper stops somebody and suspects that they're drinking, the only way he gets a breathalyzer test is if that person consents to the test. Now, the other alternative is that the trooper gets a search warrant and takes him to the hospital and they draw a blood sample. In the metro areas, that's what they're doing. They're putting in place a system whereby 24/7 they have a magistrate or a judge that's on call to get search warrants from arresting officers. And they process it electronically and then file it electronically. And they get a search warrant, and so if a person gets a DUI in, say, metro area, even if he won't consent to a breath test, they'll have a procedure in place where within a short period of time, they're going to have a blood result and have a blood test for that person based on a search warrant. All right, after Elliott, then the courts, and Mayla's probably followed this closer than I have as a defense lawyer, but even field sobriety tests, certain of those field sobriety tests have been ruled unconstitutional. They're compelling the person to be a witness against themselves by making them perform those field sobriety tests. The Georgia constitutional provision, if I understand it correctly, is more defendant-oriented than even the U.S. Constitution. It's in the U.S. Constitution in the Fifth Amendment, the person cannot be compelled to to give testimony against himself. The Georgia Constitution says a person can't be compelled to give evidence against himself. And evidence is much broader than just testimony. So the Georgia Supreme Court has really put the legislature in a spot trying to deal with this issue of breathalyzer tests and blood tests. So now the consequence this consequence is still in place. So if an officer requests that somebody give a breath test and they refuse, the law still provides that if you refuse to give that test, it results in a 6-month automatic suspension of your driver's license.
That's why driver's licenses are suspended. It's not from the arrest, it's from their refusal to give a breath or blood test. That's what triggers the suspension. And they have a 45-day driving permit that allows them to drive for 45 days, but they only have 30 days to appeal the automatic suspension that will happen from the Department of Driver Services.
And that's 6 months.
I'm sorry?
And that's 6 months?
Well, the way it results is the trooper,
It's a year suspension.
yeah, the trooper will send in what's called an ALS suspension,
You get all
administrative law suspension. And you got a 45-day permit on it, but you got to appeal the administrative suspension for the refusal within 30 days. And so if you appeal that suspension within 30 days, that extends the time for you to drive while your case is pending. I mean, defense lawyers do it all the time. Somebody comes into their office, they got a DUI a couple of weeks ago, and they hand over this yellow sheet of paper. That's an administrative suspension of their driver's license. If they don't act affirmatively and appeal that administrative suspension, they're going to lose their driver's license at the end of that 45 days, and they're going to be without it from then on. But everybody that hires a good defense lawyer is going to appeal that administrative suspension, keep the driver's license in place while the case is proceeding in the court. So you got two paths with your driver's license. You got the court path, which is disposing of the case. Then you've got the administrative path, which is the executive branch.
Department of Driver Services.
Department of Driver Services. So you got those two paths. That's why, for the most part, on older DUI cases, we don't have the issue with the driver's license repetitively, because there's a way to keep your license alive in the DDS system while your case is in the court. Because oftentimes, so you're talking about being punished twice. I always thought the administrative suspension of a driver's license was in effect kind of a form of double jeopardy, or punishing somebody twice for the same conduct. Not only do they have the criminal sanctions, but they lose their driver's license. But the ALS has been around pretty good while, not forever, but but I think the point that we would make is whoever the personnel is in the court, whether it's me or somebody else, or Mike Thomas or somebody else, because you got some issues in the backlog, you don't throw away the system. You address the issues that are going on with the system. And nobody's heard what we've had to say at all. And in fact, the financial aspect of it is another thing. Of course, the information I would put together in that regard would come from the Council of State Court Judges, because they keep statistics. I'm pretty sure we could access them. I mentioned to Alan some earlier, I mean, there was a move to do away with the state court about, time gets away from me, but probably, I'm going to say about 15 years ago. And it was political in nature primarily, but anyway, so it was soon after I became state court judge. Somebody didn't want me to hold the office, so they were going to do away with the court. And so we marshaled the evidence together, and the county commission at that time concluded that the state court was a good deal for the county. If you look at the revenue that the state court produces for the county versus your expenses today, I mean, you're doing really good, because we generate the revenue because it's the traffic cases. That's what drives the revenue, is the volume of the traffic cases. And the volume of the traffic cases hinges on, how aggressive your law enforcement officers are. And having a state patrol post right in the middle of Colquitt, I mean, you can imagine we get a lot of trooper cases. Probably got fewer cases when it was in Seminole County, but any day when you travel from Colquitt to Blakely or to Newton or Bainbridge or Donaldsonville, used to, you'd meet a trooper every once in a while. You're gonna meet one every day today, just about it, because they're coming to and from the post. So back to the point is that I think you address the issues with what you got as far as the system you got set up, and see how that works out as opposed to just scrapping the system, because you've had a state court, I think, over 100 years. It's been a long time. In the old days, it was called the City Court of Miller County. And then they modernized the term in the, I think, the late 40s. And then they, instead of calling them the City Court of Miller County, it's called the State Court of Miller County. And the reason it was called the City Court, that was back when you had the JP courts out in the county. So you'd have these justice of the peace court out in Bellevue, one in Mayhaw. So you had JP courts that would handle courts out in the county, but then the court that was in town was called the City Court of the county. That's how the name originated, to compare the city court with the justice of the peace courts that were out in the little counties. But, so you got one county court now. It's called the state.
But I think our main concern is all the backlog cases not getting cleared up.
What kind of time frame did you say it might would be?
I'd say, I don't think we could do it. I think 2 sessions of juries would probably clear it up. I mean, what is it, December? I would think by mid-year next year. By the June term of court, probably you could have it cleaned up. I used to initially, when I became state court judge, as a matter of habit, I would bring in a juror for juries twice a year. And then it got to the point where the calendar wouldn't be that long, so, and cut it back down to once a year. When you summon jurors, you gotta summon probably, well, we have 6-person juries in misdemeanor courts. But you gotta put 24 in the panel, and you have 6 strike, well, let's see, what is it? No, it's 12, 3, and 3 on 6. When you need to have enough jurors to probably pick 3 or 4 juries. You know, then you got a little bit of juror expense, but you know, they get paid next to nothing for, I've forgotten, the juror pay, Gail, is what per day? $15. I mean, so.
Getting rich.
It's been that way for 100 years.
But you'd want to summon at least 50, 60 jurors in order to have enough jurors to pick juries for all the cases, because you want a jury to try a case, and then they're dismissed, and then another jury come in and try the next case. But that's the way to address it. And then the monthly thing would be a way to address it too, which we got to get the personnel in place. The biggest problem we got with that is court reporter. I mean, it's hard to get the court reporter. Clerk's here, sheriff's here, solicitor's here, and I'm here. Sometimes we have a heck of a time finding a court reporter, but we've been able to keep a court reporter because the court reporters get committed to the bigger courts, and then plus they're doing depositions and stuff too.
But y'all be willing to try to hold court?
Oh yeah, we'll do both methods if that's what you, and I mean, we'll address it with both methods if you want to, but we got to get personnel in place once a month to do it that way. And the biggest issue there is making sure we got a court reporter. Now, what we do in municipal court is we don't have a court reporter, but we have a good, they have a good court or good reporting system or recording system in the city council chambers. So if everything is on speaker and recorded so that it can be transcribed if need be. But you don't, the main reason you have to have the court reporter is that if somebody thinks there's some problem with their case, either with the evidence or with the plea wasn't properly given, the burden is on the court to produce the record. So you gotta have a record.
I just want to say this, and this is with all respect for you, Mr. Danny, Mr. Mike, Ms. Gail, Mayla, Mr. Jimmy. I'm very, very glad that I got to hear from both sides, because I think that's super important for all of us to hear. I'm sorry that y'all had not heard about this before today. I was not aware of that, but I'm very, very sorry. I'm glad y'all got to come so we could hear. And I personally feel like that after hearing all this, that we should give you guys the opportunity to at least have a chance to clear that up. I mean, the backlog and everything. That's what I feel.
Yeah, I mean, it's been kind of a burden on my mind, and I try to burden this guy back here to get him moving, and
He's a pretty big burden anyway.
he's a pretty big burden, big guy.
Well, I
But
mean,
yeah,
speaking of
we
burdens,
need to get it cleared up, period.
well, speaking of burdens, I can speak, as a defense attorney that travels the circuit and practices in different areas, in different courts. Seminole County does not have a state court. They have a probate traffic court, they have a city court, and then they have Superior Court. By not having state court, I know their Superior Court calendar has been extremely overburdened, because all of those cases, especially if they want a trial, it's
That's
going to
the
go.
felonies and the hardcore stuff.
Yes. so
Even
it
misdemeanors there, because they don't have the state
Right,
court.
right.
Yes, so it all goes to Superior Court, and the Seminole Superior Court calendar has had such a backlog, and that they have had to hire several more attorneys just to handle those backlog of cases in Seminole County. So I know the district attorney, Vic McNeese, he's not happy about that. I can't imagine that the Superior Court judges would be happy, because again, that's adding not only to their criminal calendar, but which mainly what Danny's been talking about, but state court also handles civil cases. So someone wanted to file a personal injury suit, and they filed it in the state court, which they can do, then that goes up and kind of clogs up the Superior Court civil cases as well, which handles all the divorce and all the other civil cases that go on. So I think those court systems, both the probate, traffic court, or the Superior Court, would definitely feel the effect of there being no state court, because those cases have to go somewhere, so they're going to go down to probate or up to Superior, and that would clog up those systems as well. And because, practicing in Early County State Court, they meet monthly, so, they have a pretty sufficient, Bill Mills is actually the state court judge over there. It's been pretty efficient over there. They have arraignments 1 month. The next month they have a plea and motions day. So if your cases are going to plea, I have several cases right now that they want to plea. I just got to get them before the judge to take their plea. And then they'll do a trial calendar, and then you repeat. So they're doing arraignments every 3 months, motions and pleas every 3 months, trials every 3 months. So, I was on the trial calendar. There were only 6 cases on the trial calendar, but I had 3 of them. So I was able to handle all 3 of my trials in the same day. So, I mean, it definitely, and just going from Early County to Seminole County, Seminole County has a much, the population's less, and technically should have fewer cases, but they have so much more because Seminole does not have that state court to kind of absorb those cases. So I think we would see the same thing here in Miller as what they're dealing with in Seminole, just a backlog on the Superior Court cases, and kind of straining that system, and we only have 2 Superior Court judges for this entire 7-county circuit. So that's a lot. You say, oh, by the way, we're adding more to your caseload to have to deal with. So I think that would be a consequence of doing away with the state court system. Just having practiced in other counties and seeing how they do things.
And one thing, that's floated around at the state level, which this circuit is one of the ones they've got their eyes on, is, creating a circuit-wide state court to handle misdemeanors in all 7 counties in the Patola circuit. So they've had, they do some studies and all that sort of stuff. The Patola circuit is one of them they're looking at as probably a good candidate. Instead of just having a state court of Miller County and a state court of Early County, there'd be a state court of the Patola circuit that would handle all the misdemeanor cases in the entire circuit. Of course, you'd have to have a full-time judge and a full-time clerk to handle that. And I'm sort of the view that one full-time judge could probably do it. But that's one idea that floated at the state level, is to create circuit-wide a state court, which would be a misdemeanor court for the entire circuit. So all 7 counties in the Patola circuit would have one state court judge and one state court clerk. Of course, they'd probably have to add at least 2 prosecutors to handle it, the lawyers handling the prosecution of the cases. But that would be a pretty good system. I mean, that would benefit a county like Seminole. And if Early did not have a state court, their Superior Court would be the biggest mess you ever saw. I mean, they go through a ton of cases in Early County State Court.
If y'all got any more questions, y'all wanna make a move on this, or what y'all wanna do here?
I tend to agree with Nikki. Let's give them a chance to clean it up, and then we'll go from there. What y'all think?
Clean it up, maybe have it more often if we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Y'all willing to do that?
Oh, yeah.
All right, then y'all just wanna leave it alone right now then? Give them a
That's what I would
chance.
do, that's my insight.
All right. Good.
Okay, so give us a little while, we'll address the backlog.
You to the middle of this next summer. And what, you said middle of next summer.
Yeah, June, July.
Yeah, that's plenty of time.
Okay.
So we'll probably bring a jury in. Superior Court jury comes in February.
Judges, January, 3rd week January, judges have seminar on the contract.
So the 3rd week in January would probably be a good target for that first jury time. Superior Court judges are gone. Doesn't Superior Court.
January the 13th, 14th, and 15th is the judges' conference.
13, 14, 15
That's right.
is the judges' conference. So that's right at a month out, so.
February's
16th,
grand jury.
17th.
And
All
then
right,
it's
well-
usually after that when the trial, the jury comes in.
Looks like y'all got a chance to clean it up.
All right, good. Thank y'all
All right.
Thank you.
for listening
Appreciate
to
you
us.
coming.
All right, thank y'all.
No, just take it, we just take it.
Thank y'all for coming. All right, we'll move on. Hospital appointment. Mr. Layden Calhoun, they sent a letter the hospital authority did, and they're wanting us to submit them 3 names. But Layden has agreed to continue to serve, and they want him. So we just need to submit 2 other names beside Layden. That's just the way it's set up, the bylaws on it. So we need 2 more names. You can put mine down there, you know, they have that one. That is speed the process up. We need 1 more. Who wants to be volunteer to be cut?
I suggest Layden, but I'll put my name on it. Just to.
You might get voted in. Better put my name. It'll be sure thing. You hear what I said, lady?
You don't do it, you gotta go to
Lady.
school to do it.
I say you put my name, it's a sure thing. We are both be cut, so you'll be in.
Well, you gotta go to school, you gotta
It's a
go
sure
to school,
thing.
you gotta go to school if you get on it, so you don't really wanna get on it.
All right, so we got Layden, Allen, and Jeff.
Correct. All right, next on the agenda is department reports. We've all got, from 2 or 3 different departments, what's going on with them in there. And so it was just for our information. All right, any other departments got anything you want to talk about?
No, I just wanna let you know, if you noticed, the sheriff's department, the sheriff started sending his reports, so y'all should be getting that as well, so. We're starting to get everybody on board, to get y'all the data.
It's nice to have that when we know what's going on.
Randy, you got
I'd like to go ahead and fill out our LB stuff on Cooktown Road, all right with all y'all? I mean, we can change it, if something happens, the bridge fails, we can always change it, but I like to fill mine out and have it turned in case something's wrong, we got time to change anything that
When y'all
might
submit
come
by
up.
February?
It's due by February the 1st, but I just like to have it turned in before the end of the
Another
year.
thing on Cooktown Road, I spoke with Gerald Green, he had talked to Miss Kathy Williams up there with DOT, and they were gonna come down, look at the damage that was done from Avenue on toward, Kimball Road. And, they're supposed to be willing to step in there and repair all this damage that was done, so hopefully we can get at least that part of it out of the state and get it done.
And we got some documentation where we went and worked and fixed cold patch, I mean, we got some stuff to go along with.
We'll stay on him about that too.
Cause I bothered that woman, Miss Williams, I bothered her every time she turned around and me calling her, so she finally give in.
Yeah, I talked to Gerald, and he said he was gonna he said he was gonna try and help us. That's what he said.
Okay, well, if that's it, then we need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion.
Second.
All in favor? We are adjourned.